Hi everyone, welcome to the Armenian Music Project. My guest is Andranikyan. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tigran.
I was reading your website and I realized you put something awesome, funny, and interesting. You said that you started playing on your mom's pots and pans.
That's 100% true. When we came from Armenia, we were living in an apartment. So my dad would always put music on. There was always music in our house. So my dad would put music on, Armenian music, and I would take out my mom's pots and pans. It's funny because I would use like the lids as cymbals. And then the bigger ones, it would be like my toms, and the small one that's like a high pitch that pierces your ear, that would be my snare drum. So yeah, I would set it up and just go at it, just following whatever I can hear.
Yeah.
But that was my first official drum set.
Wow, that's awesome. So I was gonna ask if you were born in the States or came to the States from Armenia. So your parents are from Armenia. You were born. What city? What town?
I was born in Yerevan, in Yerort Masgaret. But my dad, he's from Saritagh. So most of the time we were in Saritagh, which is above Adesh. I was born there, and in 1987, actually, that's when my parents, sold everything they had. They packed their bags, and they came over to LA.
Wow. Have you been back since?
I've been back twice, actually. First time I went back was 99, when things weren't, the nicest there. And then recently, my wife and I, we went back 2013.
Okay.
So between 99 and 2013, going to Armenia, there was like a huge change that I saw within the people, within the country. And it was interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one thing I really enjoyed when I went on your Instagram account is that most people put in their bio, they write, I play with this band or whatever their profession is. But you wrote, I think I can't remember if I'm quoting you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you said something like family is first or family first.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk a little bit about your family, I would love to hear. Otherwise, I would just love to hear how you balance, having jobs, having a family, having a career in music, and all these things that are really tough to, make sure you spend enough time doing what you're passionate about as far as music or a career, but also having time to spend with your kids and your family and your wife. So how do you balance those things? A little bit about your family.
A little bit about my family. So I have 2 kids. I have, well, let me rewind a little bit. My wife and I met back in 2010. We got married in 2012. And my son, Andre, was born 2015. And my daughter, Noemi, was born 2017, September 30th. And it's great. It's like, there's a saying, like, you don't know how sweet it is until you actually have kids. And I just looked at your Instagram too. So I see you have a son, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And no, it's great. It totally brings another perspective to you in life. I mean, sometimes things get stressful. Sometimes things get hectic, especially with the current situation with COVID-19. There's always like turbulence everywhere. But when you come home and you see your kids, you play with your kids, you see your wife, you talk to your wife, and you have that family bond, it just helps you. It motivates you to keep going. Granted, it's hard because sometimes it gets hard because, it's like being on tour, being on the road. I'm away from my family. And now my kids are at the age where, they when I tell them I'm leaving, they'll be like, but why? But why? So it's that why stage right now. So I need to have answers for all the whys they ask. But that's the hardest part. It's, because you're on the road and, you're always thinking about your family, you're thinking about your kids. And, but at the same time, you're on the road because this is what you love doing. This is who you are. And, you just keep working towards your goal and, just checking in on your family, but sometimes, managing between family, work, because my second passion, of course, is for me, it's cars. I love cars. I'm an estimator. and then also my professional career, which is drum and music. Sometimes it gets a little bit difficult, but to me, I'm very like organized when it comes to whether it's work or business or anything related to life in general. I'm really organized. So it's kind of like, all right, this is my rehearsal days. These are the days that I'm going to be spending in the lockout, whether it's writing, whether it's teaching, whether it's working on production, pre-production before going into the studio. These are all important things that that my band needs. And then the other side is work. Okay, these are the hours that I'm at work. It's flexible, but I still need to be there. And then lastly, my family. You know, my family has my weekend. Friday nights, we have movie nights, Saturdays and Sundays. So it's all about family. Whatever they want to do, that's what I plan around. Unless if I have a show, then I try to make it where they come to my show. Or it's like you learn how to juggle multiple balls at the same time, and you know, do the best you can. You know, no one's perfect, but you give it an effort. So
that's awesome. Well, I want to go back to childhood and ask you what your favorite bands, what your favorite music was growing up, and then the transition into what you listen to now, if that has changed. If it hasn't, then we'll know what you listen to now as well. But what are you listening to now and in the past?
For sure. So like I was telling you, growing up, my dad would always listen to Armenian music. My dad used to play the accordion back in Armenia, so he was a musician. And when he got married, he kind of just put the accordion aside and, you know, said, I'm not going to be playing anymore. But he has a really good ear for rhythm, for timing, melody. So I don't know if you remember, or back in, I would say, the early 90s, late 80s, mostly the early 90s, there was 3 Armenian record stores in Hollywood. Number 1 was Arkelyan Records. Number 2 was Pico Records. And number 3 was Akhtamar Records.
Oh, okay.
So every Saturday, my dad would, you know, put me in the car with my brother, and we would go into these stores, and he would, you know how like we go on iTunes and we sample the song before you buy it?
Yeah.
Same thing, they would put the cassette in the cassette player, and my dad would listen to it and be like, oh, it sounds good, I'll take that. And he would ask him, any new releases from Armenian artists? It was mostly Armenian, Russian, a little bit of Arabic. So my dad would buy all those cassettes, and that's all I knew. It was just, I grew up on Armenian music, and he would listen to a lot of folk, Armenian folk too, like Sayat Nova, Babajanyan, Khachaturian, you know, all those classical composers that we've had. So my thing was just Armenian.
Yeah.
And going into middle school, I started hanging around with other cultures and other cultures that would, you know, listen to different types of music, whether it was rock or pop rock or punk. And from there, I slowly started venturing out into the punk rock world, and kind of like the grunge world, like Soundgarden, and then, you know, Hootie and the Blowfish. It was just different, like just different stuff that I started venturing out to. So I did that, and high school, that's when, you know, I was still listening to a lot of Armenian music, but that's when I really got into like rock. Like funny enough, one of the first hard rock bands that, you know, I listened to before anything was System of a Down.
Oh wow, okay.
So I got into System, and then from there it was Linkin Park and Hoobastank and A Perfect Circle, Tool. From there, it just, all this opened up. And, you know, a lot of times with rock music, you know, being Armenian and being from Armenia, I would listen to it, and it was kind of like a culture shock to my parents. My dad especially, like, he would enjoy it because he's a musician, like he would understand it. But sometimes when things got a little bit too heavy in the songs, he'll just be like, Yeah, that I don't understand. But everything else, I get it. You know, it's artistic form, and I understand. So it was most like a culture shock to my parents. Um, and then, but my thing was, you know, System of a Down, listen to them. They're Armenian, you know, this, and they were like, oh yeah. And then they would get into it. And, you know, slowly but surely, they just started coming to my shows, and they were just like, oh, this is like actually good stuff. And, you know, my son's doing pretty well. You know, he's a good drummer, you know, you know, so I did that. And then after high school, it was the same thing, you know, alternative rock, new metal. In the mid 2005, I got into like Bob Marley, reggae, and metal, like heavier stuff like Chimera and Meshuggah and Mudvayne. And in 2006, September, I decided to go to Musicians Institute. And going to Musicians Institute in Hollywood was the best decision that I could ever make, because it opened so many doors in my, you know, music vocabulary. Not only as the style of music and listening to new bands and understanding where certain genres were conceived, and understanding like the scope of all that, but also as a musician, as a drummer, because the most important talent ability you have as a drummer is your ears. And that's one thing that through the years I've worked so hard to develop, whether it's simple stuff like tuning the drums or finding the perfect cymbals for the perfect pitch. And all that was because of Musicians Institute helping me and kind of, I don't want to say changing my style, but developing it and just making it better, making it well-rounded. Not just one style, but, you know, you can add this, you can play that. And so my style gradually just changed. When I went to Musicians Institute, I was listening a lot of jazz, a lot of Miles Davis, studying jazz drummers like Elvin Jones, Tony Williams, Max Roach. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And then, of course, you know, going into the Latin side, Armenian music has a lot of 6/8, has a lot of rumba. So we kind of have that in us a little bit. But when you're studying Latin, like Afro-Cuban, and understanding salsa, the cha-cha, Mozambique, Naniego, understanding all those rhythms, it just really develops your ears. It develops you as a drummer, as a musician. So after leaving college, of course, now I was still listening to hard rock, but I was slowly moving away from it. It was just slowly changing, and my style was becoming more songwriter. It was becoming more about the song. What does the song need? What is the song asking you? You know, is the song asking you to play simple backbeat, just holding in the pocket, or it's asking you to play a simple fill? And that's something I learned when I was studying about the Beatles and Bob Dylan. So yeah, gradually my style did change after 2008. After I graduated MI, my style did change. And back in 2010, when I started dating my wife, she was listening to bands like One Republic, The Script, a little bit more on the pop rock side. And I was like, wow, The Script is actually good. So my wife and I mean, before this whole coronavirus lockdown happened, we used to go to shows all the time. We went to many concerts together, and, you know, she had a big influence on me too, as far as the style, because she brought in something that I would probably never listen to. And then I started looking into The Script. I'm like, man, these guys are like major singer-songwriters. Not only that they're a band, they've written so many songs for different artists. And then I started paying attention, like what's being played in movies, what's being played at grocery stores. I'm like, man, this band is everywhere, you know? Then I started going that route, you know, by understanding good songwriting, something that the masses could listen to. It's easy listening. And so, yeah, gradually my style changed. Right now, if you were to pick up my, iTunes account and see the variety I have in there, it's everything. I can't name one artist because there are just so many different artists that I listen to. And I'm very fortunate of that, because everything that has come into my life, it has affected me in a positive way. So, that's where I could leave it. Is my style changed, and now it's at where it's at because of all the people around me.
Yeah. You mentioned your dad. Do you want to put a band together, or he doesn't play much anymore?
Funny story. My dad has his first accordion. I think it's a Welsmeister,
Okay.
or maybe I'm saying it wrong, but it's a German accordion. He has it. It's sitting in my parents' garage. I think it's from like the 60s. And now that I have two little kids, my dad takes it out and plays for them, and they get so excited and they get so happy. And funny story, like, my kids love music. Like, this whole time that we've been in quarantine, all we've been doing is just, I've been playing a lot of different music for them, a lot of different styles, and they each have a ukulele guitar, and they're rocking out. They have bongos, and it's like our little mini band. But yeah, my dad, like, we never thought about making a band, but sometimes what would happen is, growing up, I didn't actually have a studio. I didn't have a lockout. So my drum set was set up either in my bedroom or was set up in the garage. And I remember a couple of times where, like, I'm playing, and then my dad would just come in and pick up the accordion, and him and I would just start rocking out. I mean, of course, his style is a lot different, but I loved it because it was challenging me to listen to what the man is playing, just tone down, just back up a little bit, let him take the lead and just kind of rock with it. But yeah, as far as making a band, we never thought about that. But as far as jamming out together and, playing together, we've done that a couple times.
Yeah. When I asked you to come on the show, I put it out there. I said, hey, ask questions for art, and got a couple of questions. One is from my brother, actually, and he said, and my brother. He said, ask him about the Alchemist Element.
Alchemist Element?
Yeah. Play with them. What's the connection there?
Yeah, I actually played with them. It was right after, I think it was 2008. They were looking for a drummer. And right after MI, I auditioned, and I went in, and a couple times played with them. And I was like, oh man, like, this is good stuff. It was a very progressive rock. It was something that I hadn't played before. Mostly before, like, I would play like metal reggae, where now it was mostly just a lot of cool stuff, especially Hamlet, like, he's a really talented guitar player, really cool guy. So yeah, it was a lot of fun playing with Alchemist Element, and that's actually how I met your brother Art. Yeah. We were getting ready to play a couple shows. I forgot where. I think it might have been Troubadour or something. And the lead singer, David, was like, hey, there's a guy, Art, he'll come and help us out. I think he came and helped us out a couple of shows, and that's how I actually met your brother. So yeah, I played with Alchemist Element for, I think, about a year and a half. And then from there, I went on to a different project.
Wow. Okay, so another question. What is your dream drum set? And if you have it now, your dream drum set, what is it?
My dream drum set. That's a good question, because I never thought about like a dream drum set. For me, it's something that sounds good, most importantly, because I can basically play on anything, as far as like whether it's Yamaha, DW, it doesn't really matter to me. But as long as it sounds good. As far as dream drum set, to be honest with you, I don't really have one. It's just, to me, it's like, if the drums sound good and I could tune it, it doesn't fall apart, on stage. Remind me, I'm going to go back to my first drum set. I have a really, really cool story to share. But there's one thing I want to add to this as far as dream drum set. I don't have a dream drum set, but I have two very special snare drums that I play on. And both of them were handmade. I basically selected everything from the hardware to the lugs, to the rims, to the wood. And the first one was actually painted and designed by my father-in-law. My father-in-law, he's very super talented paint. He has a body shop, so he does body work. But some of the work he does is just like, he's a true craftsman. So what happened was, I took him this drum shell and I said, hey, Dad, can you do me like a favor and paint this for me? And because what he did a couple of like dashboards for Rolls Royces and like more higher end expensive cars. And I'm looking at the dashboard and I'm like, wow, this is beautiful. Imagine this on a drum set. And he did the same thing on a tabletop. It looks kind of like marble. So he said, bring me the shell. Just tell me what colors you want and bring me the shell. I said, sure. I want it to be black and white. So I'm going to show you basically. So this is the drum that he made. That's his signature. His name is Nazaret Minasian. Uh-huh. And this is basically hand painted.
Wow.
So the black is the base. Let me show you the base really quick. So the black part is the base. The drum was just black. And then on top, this is all his work. It's actually silver, white, metallic paint. So all around. So he did all this. And this is one of the two special snare drums that I own. It's a 14-inch, 6.5 depth, very versatile snare drum, and it's bird's eye maple, so it's a very warm sound. My second snare drum, which is another handmade drum, my friend Avo Karapetyan, he started making drums, and his drum company is actually called Ether Drums. And these little handprints you see on here, they're my son's handprints. So in 2017, my son turned 3 years old. And I guess, my wife's idea was to surprise me with a new snare drum. So I guess, I don't know the whole story, but I think she might have reached out to Avo, who's a good friend of mine, a drum maker. They collaborated, and long story short, this snare drum came out, which is my son's handprints. And then a couple months back, before we were going to go on a tour this March, I got my daughter's handprints on the backside, and you can see her name and the date that she stamped it. And same thing on this side, you can see my son's name, Andre, and the date that he stamped it. So these two snare drums are my two main and only snare drums that I use in the studio, during rehearsal, recording songs. They're both bird's eye maple. They're both very versatile snare drums. And this is something that I will cherish forever.
One more question from someone who commented, your favorite Armenian rock musician?
I would say, like I was telling you, the first rock band that I started listening to is System of a Down. So I would most likely say, famous Armenian musician, I'm going to say John Dolmayan and Serj Tankian, the singer and the drummer of System of a Down. My first drum set was a Tama Rockstar, and my second drum set was a Tama Star Classic. And I got into the whole Tama thing because John plays Tama, and I was like, wow, it's a beautiful kid. It sounds great. And, he kind of pushed me in that route and inspired me, and kind of even my beginning playing, I was very inspired by John as a drummer. So I would cover his songs like Chop Suey, Toxicity, Aerials. So I'm going to have to say John Dolmayan. And then secondly, Serj Tankian as an amazing, singer, vocalist, artist, all around. So.
And you said something. You said, "Remind me." I'm going to tell you a story about my first drum set. So what is that?
So my first drum set, so we were living in, was it in 90? I was in fifth grade, so fifth, sixth grade, so 95, 96. We moved to North Hollywood in 94. And ever since then, when we moved to North Hollywood, we bought a house. So I still didn't have a drum set. So I kept asking my dad, like, hey, Dad, I want a drum set, you know. I'm tired of playing on mom's pots and pans. And not only that, I'm breaking them. Um, he was like, okay, you know, we'll get you a set. And my grandpa, my mom's dad, gave my dad a call and said, hey, there's a yard sale across the street from us. And they're selling a drum set. So my dad goes over and looks at it, and, you know, we go together and we're like, all right, cool. So we picked it up. It was like $50 or something like that. So we bring the set home. It's an old Remo kit, probably from like the 70s or 80s. Like, you can't even tune the heads. It has like mount-on clips to the heads. So we bring it home. It's missing legs. It's missing like bass drum mounts. It's missing a lot of things. And my dad was like, all right, I can make this work for you. So my first drum set, he basically took it all apart. He put screwdrivers, like long screwdrivers, into the bass drum, so the bass drum doesn't move. And the floor tom didn't have any legs. So we went and we bought tom legs from Guitar Center, but because it's an old kit, it doesn't fit. So he had to drill new holes. So he did that. Snare drum stand was falling apart. We got a new snare drum stand. The snare was falling apart. He retightened the wires and he made it work. And I played that drum set for at least a year and a half to 2 years until my dad was like, okay, it looks like you're really into this, and, you know, you're practicing a lot, you're playing, you're having fun. So let's go to Guitar Center and buy you a new kit. And that's when, you know, we went to the store and got my first drum set. So yeah, that was my first story, you know, having a drum set that's falling apart, and, you know, having a dad that makes it work, puts it all together for you, and you just play on it for a couple of years until, you know, he buys you a real drum set.
Wow.
So
Your current band, the Ships Have Sailed. Tell me a little bit about that and how that whole project came about.
sure, Ships Have Sailed. So I started playing with the band in 2015. Ships Have Sailed used to be a three-piece. The bass player Dan, who's still a great friend of mine, we were doing a lot of session work together, bass and drums. If he was on a session, you know, he would call me. If I was on a session, I would call him. And one night I get a text message saying, hey, the band I'm playing with right now, Ships Have Sailed, we're going out to Toronto for Canadian Music Week, and we need a drummer to fill in. Our drummer's not able to make it. Are you available? This is like middle of the night. I'm looking at the text. I'm like, Toronto? Huh. All right. I said, yes, send me the info. So I tell my wife, I'm like, hey, look, I just got this text message. And being my number one supporter, she was like, awesome. Say, yeah, you're going to go. I was like, cool. I was like, yeah, send me information. He goes, all right, you'll get a call from Will Carpenter tomorrow. Will is the second half of Ships Have Sailed. He's the brainchild behind this. It's, you know, and so yeah, the next day I go to work and I get a call, and it's Will. We have a 30-minute discussion, and he says, hey, Art, you know, we need a drummer. Our drummer's not able to make it. Are you available to travel with us? And I said, sure, I'm available. What are the dates? He said, oh, it's in a month. So we connected in April, and I think we were going to fly out in the first week of May. And I said, all right, so when can we rehearse? I think we had 1 or 2 rehearsals, because what happened was he sent me all the songs before. And I basically going in there, I had everything ready. So I went in there, couple rehearsals, you know, we played all the parts, everything was good. We went out to Toronto the weeks after. We flew actually into Ohio. We drove from Ohio all the way to Toronto. We did Canadian Music Week. We played a couple of shows. And then we drove back to Ohio, stayed at the bass player's parents' house in Spencer, Ohio for a couple of days, and we flew back. So I've been playing with Ships That Sailed for about 5 years now. I started back in 2015, and Dan, actually, the bass player, I think it was about a year and a half ago, or maybe 2 years ago, he had to leave the band. He got a promotion at his job, and a lot of good stuff for him. So we were very happy for him, and he had to leave the band, and that's where Will and I were the only members. So it's a duo, and he plays the guitar, he sings, he does all the Ableton backing tracks, and I do the drums. I play all the drum parts.
So for the shows, you play with the backing track?
Yes, we have a full Ableton setup. We have a backing track with all the tracks, all the sessions, all the stems, and then the bass too. So, and a click. So you have a click in the left ear,
wow,
and everything else is in the right ear. But sometimes I bleed it over to the left, and I take out the in-ears for the right one, so I can hear click and track in the left ear. So everything that you don't see on stage live, it's coming through the tracks. And honestly, like, I've heard this a couple times, like, from people that seen us play live, like, hey, if we like close our eyes or we turn around and not look at you guys sound like a full band. There's like nothing missing. And we're like, oh man, cool. That's good to hear, because that's what we're trying to aim at, being a two-piece band.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to, deliver the full band sound, but just being the both of us.
Wow, that's amazing. And with technology, it fails sometimes. Has it ever happened in your shows where the Ableton or whatever you have set up kind of fails and you're stuck there with just the two of you, guitar, vocalist, and the drummer? Has that ever happened?
It happened twice, but it didn't actually happen in the middle of the set. One time I remember we were playing at the Viper Room, and I think it was like a couple minutes before the curtains going up, the tracks were selected. A couple of the tracks were selected, and we weren't using Ableton at the time. We were using Logic. So when the tracks were selected, I accidentally hit delete, and it deleted all the tracks right like a couple minutes before going up. So I turned to Will and I was like, Will, I think I accidentally deleted some of the tracks. And he looks at it. He goes, don't save it. They just restart the computer and everything will come back. So, we did that and everything came back. So it was like a panic moment. And the second time we were actually playing Hotel Cafe. This happened during the song set, but it was something that we couldn't control. So we were playing the smaller stage and everything is very tight on the smaller stage. I had the laptop right there next to me, but from the vibration of the stage, the laptop kept moving. It just started moving to a point where it was just going to fall. So what I did is I just stopped playing. I grabbed the laptop and my thumb hit a button. It just turned off the track. It turned off everything. And I'm in this position. And I put it back, and then Will comes up and he goes, what happened? Is everything okay? I'm like, yeah, man, from the vibration of the stage, the laptop was going to fall. It was either, letting the laptop fall and breaking the laptop, or, letting it fall, breaking, stopping. And then, it's like, are we still playing? Because the laptop broke. It was just like, it was a moment decision that I had to make. And Will was like, of course, sorry guys, we had a technical difficulty. Laptop was about to fall. But, I do worry about that sometimes because we are so technology heavy. But through the years, like, Will and I both have gotten better minimizing the amount of equipment we need on stage as far as being able to run that. And having a setup that's, number one, it's solid. It's not going to fall. It's not going to go anywhere. And number two, it's very easy for the sound guy. A lot of times we show up and we put the laptop, we put the whole setup, and the sound guy goes, so what do you need? We just need an XLR. It connects to the DI. Everything is dialed in. There's no mixing, none of that happening on stage. It's just easy peasy. Our setup is literally like 5-10 minutes, if that. Drums go up, the technology goes up, we connect it in, we're ready to go. It's just 1, 2, 3, go.
Wow,
So
that's
through
amazing.
the years, through the years, we just gotten better. So.
Well, one thing with drummers or people who carry heavy instruments is that you don't have to go to the gym or work out because you just carry all those instruments. Do you have any hobbies, any sports that you participate in?
Sports, I play with my kids all the time. We're playing basketball with my son. I'm teaching him how to shoot. I would say mostly basketball and soccer. I love soccer. I mean, I love basketball too, but both of them, it's like teaching my son how to play soccer, teaching him how to kick, and then teaching him how to play basketball, teaching him how to shoot. So a lot of times, like, over the weekend when it's just us, we just start shooting hoops together, playing basketball. So
that's awesome. All right, it's been a pleasure. Anything else you want to add before we end?
Yeah, actually, my band Ships of Sail, we're releasing a new single this Wednesday called Low. You can purchase it on iTunes, Amazon Music. You can stream it on Spotify or iTunes Music. And let us know what you think.
Thanks, Art. Hopefully we'll do this again one day in person, maybe.
Thank you, Tigran. Thank you so much for having me.